Hello and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk, exploring the issues affecting all of our lives. I'm your host, Austin Harris. On today's episode, we revisit the ongoing beach vendor dispute, including recent sanctions proposed by the Public Lands Commission and promises by the government to deliver new policies that may allow a balance between fostering vendors as a new class of entrepreneur while balancing the needs to protect Cayman's tourism product. With us in studios once again to help us better understand the challenge faced by legitimate beach vendors, it is our pleasure to welcome local businessman David Lyons. David, welcome again to Let's Talk, and thanks for coming back.
Thank you for having me again, Austin.
It was a real pleasure, and I want to thank you. The last interview, I think, smashed all of our records in terms of viewership, proving that clearly this issue of the beach vendors and the plight that you and other water sports operators face is very real, but also very popular amongst, well, at least the listening audience.
That's correct.
Indeed. If we just jump right into it, one of the major concerns you spoke about last time you were here was the lack of presence by the authorities on business days on the public beach. And of course, when we say the authorities, in this case, we refer to the Public Lands Commission, who are responsible for regulating commercial business on Crown land. We understand, though, that since our last interview, there has been some activity on the beach, greater presence by DCI and their inspector, also visits from DCI, or Department of Commerce and Investment. Has that had any effect, or is it just mere window dressing?
In the beginning, there was an effect. Most people were moved and they stayed away for a period of time, but then they came back. DCI is not there as much as I would like to see them. Lands Commission work. It's a problem that continues to grow. You have a big shootout, and then after that, when the smoke clears, there's nothing else going on. I was told by Lands Commission Inspector Ms. Prendergast that everything after February 1st would be sorted. People would have to leave and so forth, but we still have the same ongoing issues. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's becoming draining.
Sure.
It's repetitive. If it's not the same people, you have other people coming. I feel that those that fought to be there are not protected in any way. Ms. Prendergast said, well, my hands are tied until Parliament passes, gives us some stability, some grounds and guidelines to go by. And it hasn't been done as yet. I don't know what is the delay or why is it being delayed so long. Are they waiting to see us fail? Are they waiting to see, a bad accident or a bad fight? I don't know what it is, but it needs to be addressed and sorted. There are many other things in our community that needs to be addressed and sorted too, but this is one of them.
Right. Well, I know, just speaking to two of those points, I know that there has been some discussion about creating a new application process, at least this is what the Public Lands Commission are saying, for new entrants to the sector. But to your point, what is being done for those who are already licensed to operate, that is a question that you and others, the legal vendors, have.
Well, first of all, like I said, we're not protected, and we're not being protected.
Right.
I'm told that there was a window open for new applicants to apply to be able to work on 7 Mile Beach or to conduct business. So there's a number of people that have applied for chairs. I mean, the Marriott is one.
Right.
And more than likely they won't be refused because they don't have any beach. I
Yes.
mean, they have been out there before, brought their own chairs and so forth. But when you have the Marriott, then you have Red Sail come along, because wherever they take their tourists, their clients, their
The
guests,
Yeah.
they are going to be catered to by the bigger company,
Right.
Red Sail Sports. They're not going to be catered to us, the locals, so it doesn't do anything for us.
Have you had Marriott guests on the public beach? And of course, with their presence, the presence of the larger water sports operators?
Definitely.
Really?
Yes,
Okay,
that's-
so compounding
that's how
the
it
issue on
was.
public beach.
That's how it was last time that they were there.
Right. Well, speaking of the Public Lands Commission,
But I'd like to continue
Yeah.
and say that if the 16 people that were there, everyone was saying it's too much, but you open a window to allow more people to apply,
right,
you know, and then those people also go in front of the board or parliament along with myself, who has paid fines, fought, and done the right thing for a long time. And you know, how is that equal?
Yeah.
How is there some balance to that?
Well, there has been a lot of flip-flopping from the politicians, particularly in the media. I know that at one stage the Minister of Tourism stated that the beach vendors had to go. They couldn't be operating on the beach. But then I think politically he realized a lot of the people, particularly his constituents, who he represents, operate as beach vendors, and now his tune is somewhat different. It's now his hands in the air. I don't know what the solution is. But in fairness, it's not just the Minister of Tourism that has to make the decision, it's the Minister of Lands, and ultimately it falls on the Premier to find some direction to this present confusion. Going back to the Public Lands Commission for a moment, we saw an article that appeared in the local press which stipulated that the Public Lands Commission were reminding persons that it was a criminal offense for people to conduct commercial activities on Crown land without a license. And as you stated, the Commission issued a blanket cease and desist order to all illegal vendors to discontinue operating by February 1st or face further prosecution. Well, very clearly, we've passed that date. Was this just a vague threat, or have there been persons that have been removed and or their merchandise, equipment, and otherwise confiscated as a result since then?
There were drinks confiscated up to maybe last week or week before. There were some drinks confiscated when they came through. But like I say, you still have actors that are acting and playing the part, and they just need to be picked out and removed. You know, one gentleman is set up on the other side of my tent, and all of the water sports people came together and said, well, he's not a part of it, so someone needs to speak to him in regards to what is he doing here.
Mm-hmm.
And as always, I had to be the one to step up to the plate. And I said to him, because I have no issue with the guy, bro, you're not supposed to be here. It's just these 3 companies or 4 companies for water sports now. And he says, I'm not on Crown land. So, you know, they can't do me anything, or no one can remove me.
He's not on Crown land. Where was he? In the water?
He was actually on the other side of Calico Jacks.
Okay.
But I said to him, I said, yes, you're not on Crown land, but you're walking onto Crown land and you're poaching and you're taking customers, you're taking sales from us.
Right.
And I believe this is one of the guys that used to operate outside of Coral Beach.
I see.
But, you know, Coral Beach had closed down for a time.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is looking to make an income. I'm not trying to knock him for making an income. He's a non-national that's married to a Caymanian, and their household needs to be maintained just as well as mine.
Right.
Like I said before, and I've had the experience this week of a tourist saying, listen, are you from Cayman? Yes, born and raised. Oh, wonderful, it's great to meet a native. They always want to meet a native. Oh, your accent, and what language is that? Is it patois? What is it? You know, so, like I said, nothing against him, but I don't think that he should be there. And he's able to come on Crown land, take bread out of our mouth and put into his.
Right.
You know, there are words in the air that there will be other locations, and some of the vendors will have to go to those locations or whatever. I think the government should look into getting these places sorted out as soon as possible, and allocating everyone an area to work. Just make sure that everyone gets a fair amount of buses, a fair amount of traffic flow.
Sure.
Personally, I don't see myself leaving the 7 Mile Public Beach. I'm one of the people that helped build it, and we have return customers that are going to come there looking for myself or my business or someone that's representing me.
Right. Well, see, that's what confuses me. I mean, we have this ongoing issue. There are, at present, 16 original licensed vendors that have been obviously pressing the government's, not just present administration, but previous administrations, to clarify this issue of their rights to be there. But yet we see the present administration agreeing there's an issue, agreeing that there are far too many persons operating on one single property. But at the same token, they're talking about crafting legislation to bring in more applicants. So before fixing the problem that exists today for the 16 licensed vendors, it seems that we're approaching this thing sort of backwards by making the problem worse and then coming in to address it. Speaking of locations, though, Minister Bryan also, when he was speaking on Radio Cayman, did state that a part of the problem and the congestion on the public beach came as a direct result of the closures of other venues, Coral Beach, Tiki Beach, Calico Jacks, all of which used to house cruise visitors when they were in town for a few hours of the day. All of those properties have since been sold to a private interest and as a result have been closed. That has put even more pressure on public beach. Is there any indication that these other venues will be reopening at any point in time?
Well, I'm hearing Calico Jacks will reopen, but they will step the structure back from where it's at on the high water mark.
Okay.
And, Coral Beach is now open again, but it's only called Coral Beach because there's no beach along there.
Right.
So there's the issue with erosion also.
Yeah.
That definitely needs to be addressed.
But that's impacting all of 7 Mile Beach. Yes, it is impacting those beaches that have physical property at the water's edge. Marriott as a fantastic example, but Coral Beach also. But also just in general, 7 Mile Beach, with the recent nor'wester that blew through, it is seeing greater erosion in general. Is that sort of an annual thing, or in your point of view, is it getting worse across 7 Mile Beach?
Erosion is definitely getting worse across 7 Mile Beach. I know how to fix it.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's a simple fix.
Is it?
It's a very simple fix, but you have to spend a lot of money, obviously. So is this government or the next government or whatever government is going to be prepared to do it? If you look at the Marriott and Coral Beach, all that erosion there, and you look to the east of it, the sea walls is a part of what caused it.
Yes.
It should be protecting it, but it's a part of what caused it. What they didn't realize when they built those walls is that when the wind is coming, when you have the waves coming from south or southeast, southwest, all of the 7 Mile Beach get pounded up from that direction, but it takes the sand and takes it westward bound.
Mm-hmm.
And when we get a northwester, now it brings it the other way. So the sand moves and the depth moves only for a period of time, depending on, you know, how long it takes before we have such weather pass through.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was saying, so if you look towards that side where we're having the erosion, right in the same area you have Treasure Island. Treasure Island has no beach erosion in front.
But they also have that sort of protected beach. They have their boulders there, intending, I think, perhaps on the one hand to protect their bathers, but I think certainly to also protect their beach.
I think initially it wasn't designed to protect the beach.
Right.
But if you go down there and you look at the beach has not changed over the last 15, 20 years,
Mm-hmm.
whereas the rest of the 7 Mile Beach have.
Right.
I mean, within the last 48 hours, I would say we lost maybe, I would dare to say in some areas, 15 to 20 feet
Really?
of beach on the 7 Mile public beach. So that's another thing I think that they need to come down and take a look at.
Yeah.
You know, I'm always inviting them to come down. I would love them to come down there, especially on a busy day,
Right.
and see what it is and see the service that we provide. And
Have you
how-
had any politician come down and take a look at the challenge that exists, particularly on busy days?
I was told Andre came there 2 weeks ago,
Okay.
but he apparently only went in the section where the food was being sold by the old bathrooms in
Right.
that area where most bus drivers enter. I didn't see him come down to the water sports section or any further down. By the time I heard he was there and went up, he had already left. I was also told during Christmas, Kenneth Bryan went on 2 occasions and took a walk through. I was hoping to be there. It was a slow day,
Right.
but I was hoping that I was there. When I was called and told he was there, by the time I drove to the 7 Mile Beach, he had already left.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to go over some stuff with him in person and show him firsthand
Right.
what we have dealing with. Our tourism product is a great product. I would definitely take my hats off to Messrs. Haig Borden and Jim Borden in what they did. I mean, everyone has a different opinion about politics and politicians, but when you look at what they've done for the country, it's phenomenal. You know.
Yeah. One of the other issues that we raised the last time we chatted was the vendor village, I think they have it called, the kiosks that were built specifically for vendors in which to operate from. Also in a recent news article, I think it was again Public Lands Commission Chief Inspector Winston Prendergast said that a new permit application process is in the works, but in the meantime, only pre-approved vendors can operate, especially on 7 Mile Public Beach, but that must be from the kiosks. The last time we spoke, we clarified that one size doesn't fit all. The kiosks perhaps may be suitable for a person selling T-shirts and crafts, but someone like yourself who offers wave runners and tube rides and otherwise beach activity, you simply cannot operate in a kiosk that is away from the beach. In some cases, 200-300 yards away from the beach. You have to operate on the beach. Is this an example of the Public Lands Commission perhaps getting the wires crossed in terms of distinguishing between one type of vendor and the other?
Well, in all honesty, Austin, at this moment, and once Ms. Prendergast came through, they put all water sports operators in the section of Calico Jacks, and everyone else that's doing chairs and umbrellas and food would be over in the vendor's village. No one operates out of those. The best people do is store souvenirs, or they store their umbrellas in those kiosks and lock them.
Right.
But
No one operates from them. No one. And certainly this must be very clear to the inspector when they are in fact there in physical form. They must see this themselves.
right, right. But like I said, they have the vendor village, and in that section now you have, say, 3 or 4 tents with people selling food under it, and then next to each kiosk that was allocated to someone, they'll have a tent with their stuff and tables displayed next to it. So they're not operating in the kiosk, but they're operating next to the kiosk, those with souvenirs and t-shirts.
Right.
You know, and even those people are at risk now of making less money, because once the applications are approved that go before Parliament, you will have other vendors coming and selling the same thing that you're selling
Sure.
at the same location, because there's no other locations at the moment. West Bay Public Beach doesn't get that traffic, none at all. Gets a traffic crossing going to Turtle Farm, but that's it.
Right.
You know, after everyone goes to Turtle Farm, they don't want to stop at the beach there and go back. They'd rather just go into town and do some shopping, and they've already seen souvenirs over at the Turtle Farm.
Right.
So they're not interested in stopping to purchase anything.
Sure.
You know,
Another issue that I think perhaps adds to the congestion and some of the criticism has been the matters of beach chairs and umbrellas, which, when you were here last, you defined their existence as a necessity. And certainly from my various visits on the beach, they are a necessity. The cruise visitor particularly enjoy having the beach chairs and the umbrellas, and they're widely used. However, it seems the leader of the country, the Honorable Premier, Premier Panton, disagrees with you and, of course, the cruise passengers themselves. If I can quote, he was speaking on a show, Premier Access, and he said that Caymanians are not able to enjoy public beaches as chairs and umbrellas operated by beach vendors are strewn all over the beach and all the way to the water. This is supposed to be for families. It's supposed to be for the public to enjoy. It's not supposed to be a flea market on the beach. So obviously he's raising concerns that there are beach chairs between the mid to high water mark, and even in some cases down to the water itself. And he's of the opinion that they shouldn't be there at all. But you're of the opinion, and many vendors are of the opinion, that this is a part of their business. What are your thoughts on those remarks?
Well, first of all, Austin, with protocol being established, I would say that some people that visit and they come by the buses, tourists, of course, we're speaking of, at the top of the road or where the buses pull in, they'll say, hey, no chairs, no umbrellas. But when they get down there and they look around, they say, the next person that they see renting a chair, they go over to and ask for a chair or umbrella. They want their stuff to be set down, and they want to lay out and have a drink of whether it's lemonade or something hard. Once again, all over the world, wherever there is tourism and beach activities, they have to be beach chairs, they have to be umbrellas, they have to be drinks. You know, you got to have water sports. I went on the beach a few days ago just to check it out. I know it was going to be a slow day. It didn't make sense for me to operate. The last time I went out with that ship, I made $400 US with 4 workers, and I paid, I think it was $250 or $300 to top up the machines with fuel. Total loss. So I didn't work the next week of that ship, and I went out there, and even though it was a slow day the week before, the next week you had people there that wanted to do activities. So I had to run along and try and get myself set up and go out to try and make a couple dollars, because every dollar that you can grab nowadays with tourism is important.
Right.
Because the flow of tourists that we were having before, I do not see us having them again, and people are not spending money like they were once the high season started, or tourism started back in the Cayman Islands.
Right. Speaking of tourists, we have seen tourism returning to the Cayman Islands, and in the words of the minister, tourism is rebounding even faster than they anticipated. Whilst stayover tourism is looking very positive, I think the government forecast a goal of 40% of 2019 stayover numbers, and by December they're forecasting 53% of that goal. So they're way ahead of the mark on stayovers. On cruise side, not so much. They're running about 38% of the 2019 numbers, and the goal the government set for themselves were 70% of 2019 figures. Are you feeling an increased presence of cruise visitors at the beach, and are they of the spending variety that are otherwise utilizing the services that you offer?
Everyone was spending in December and January.
Okay.
Late December, January, people were spending. People are not spending now. It's actually slow at the moment. What we need with cruise tourism is we need to have 8,000, 10,000, 12,000 people in port when we have cruise ships. When we get ships that there's only 2,000 and 4,000 people in, it makes no sense. And with 3 or 4 water sports companies on the beach, it becomes very competitive.
Right.
It becomes very competitive, and it gets to the point that it makes no sense, because the prices of the activities go down.
Yes.
And that doesn't suit anyone.
Right.
You know.
Well, despite the attention that has been brought to bear on this subject, and whilst the attention has motivated the authorities to act, if not ever so briefly, we have, again, as we discussed, seen the authorities issuing cease and desist orders that seem to have little meaning or value. February 1st was the deadline set by the Public Lands Commission. That's since come and gone, but there's still illegal beach vendors taking place. There also seems to be significant differences between even government ministers. Who should be there? Who should not be there? What services should be provided? What shouldn't be provided? So there doesn't seem to be any cohesive thought, at least from the government side, in terms of what should exist. Should beach vendors stay, or should beach vendors go? And again, going back to the Public Lands Commission, in fairness, they're the ones who are, in all of this conversation, authorized to find that agreement, to make that agreement between the vendors and, of course, the authorities, to find that happy middle ground. And that, so far, isn't happening, as you say, and as they say. They're waiting on new legislation, which would otherwise allow them to revise the application process. I mean, forgive me for being blunt, but it seems to me like a race to the bottom. Nobody is being held accountable, and a lot of, as one politician said, a lot of lips flapping, but no wings flying. What are your thoughts on the progress we've made on this issue since the last time we chatted?
2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Right, yeah, indeed. We also heard comments from the Minister of Tourism of his desire, I won't even call them plans, it was sort of just his desire, that he thought perhaps it might be a good idea to move the governor's residence and utilize the beach in front of his residence as another alternative location in which to house both cruise visitors as well as perhaps stayovers and locals. What are your thoughts on on that. I mean, from my perspective, isn't the beach in front of the governor's already in use, whether it be by locals or visitors? And certainly, if it were used, it would certainly answer the question of authorities being present, because obviously the governor's residence is well protected by police officers all the time. But what are your thoughts on the Minister of Tourism's suggestion that we should move the governor's residence and make that beach available for beachgoers?
Well, I would say at whose expense? Is it going to be the taxpayers? You know, and the governor's beach, including the beach in front of the governor's house, is half the size of the 7 Mile Public Beach. You know, so there's not a lot of space. That's not going to be adequate to take the same amount of vendors according to the amount of applications and those who desire to sell on Crown land. I mean, where are we going to put the governor? Governor's Harbor? There's no space there for him. It's all bought out. So Crystal Harbor is going to be a $2 million property. You know, who's going to pay for that? That's $2 million without putting a structure on there in a gated community. I think the governor is fine where he is, and I'm sure he enjoys waking up and seeing the water and having those beautiful sunsets that he sees. He appears to be a very humble man, and I think from Governor Thomas Russell days, they had no issue living there, and any other governor that would come after, with no disrespect to them, should live there. This is a historical spot. You're going to try and move a historical spot? So we're going to have 2 governors' houses now, or the governor used to live here, but he's now here? What are we doing? You know, another thing to me, I say, in regards to not just tourism and politics, but we as a people need to fix ourselves. You know, a lot of people are saying, Dart. Yeah, Dart has a lot of properties here. But let's fix ourselves first of all. We should have a property cap. At first, I didn't believe in that, but now I do. Reason being is, back to AJ again. Rich, poor, middle class. You have upper middle class and lower middle class. Once you continue to separate the rich from the middle class, all of the middle class, whether it's lower middle class or upper middle class, falls in the poor bracket. And that's why we have the issues with young Caymanians getting homes. You know, the banks would rather give them a loan for a car for $50,000 for a Dodge Ram instead of giving them $250,000 or $300,000 to get a home. You know, and like I said before, we have many issues that need to be addressed. I mean, even the issue of national security, you know, it might be a touchy subject with the politicians, but it's the truth. When you're going to find expats from, an expat from Jamaica, or a few expats from Jamaica that have killed how many people and ran away to the island, and we're saying, oh yeah, we got them, we deported them. Yeah, but they came here. Right. You know, so they broke through. You know, the Cubans are coming in and they don't even have power. They're sailing or they with a lawnmower engine coming through, and they're touching our shores. And this is another issue that the taxpayer has to pay for. We got to pay to fly them back. We got to pay to house them. We got to pay to do this, that, and the next with their medical and all this. You know, so it's crazy. It's, you know, even the young people. We have to look at our young people very carefully, because there's not only everyone was cocaine, ganja. You know, I'll be honest and straight across the board with you. You got kids that are taking prescription pills and mushrooms and, you know, powder in their nose and doing a bunch of stuff that, you know, we need to address these things. A lot of them, even from my generation of coming out of school, got exposed to these things when they went off to university and to college. And a lot of parents see their kids come back and they have these mood swings and behave in a certain way, and they don't understand what's going on. So I'll open your eyes and tell you what's going on. This is what I'm going on. I mean, even with my own kids, I look at them and, make sure, and I tell them, hey, if you go that way, it's a mistake. I've been down this road already, and this is what it is. Please try and learn from my mistakes. Like I say, I'm far from perfect, and I've never been perfect. We all fall short of the glory of God in some way or the other. But, right is right and wrong is wrong. I don't feel that we should move the governor. I feel that we have CUC bills, we have the gas issue, we have the import costs. You import a wave runner, it's 29.5% or 20 odd percent. The percentage doesn't sound high, but when you take the numbers and look at the numbers with the funds that you spent, 29% is a substantial amount.
Sure.
And the government has had to do this because we're a tax-free haven. And this is another point I almost forgot that I wanted to make. What I would like to see them address is, well, first of all, when you open a bank account here, it is so difficult at this time to open a bank account. Before, you could take your kid's hand, walk them into the bank, and open a bank account for them with their birth certificate or their passport. That time is long gone. And I want them to realize that this time is gone because of movies being made and people are saying, oh yeah, I laundered my money in the Cayman Islands. The Cayman Islands was this drug transshipment spot and this thing and the next thing. Like, okay, you want to go out there and say that and everyone's going to sue it and see it across the world. Well, you need to stand up. You've been sitting down for years and these people been doing it. Put a lawsuit on them. Yeah, prove that these things are happening in the Cayman Islands.
At the very least, control the narrative that's being said about your country.
Exactly. It's ridiculous. People always think that you have so much money running around here. Like, where is it running around? Everyone works hand to mouth. The majority of the population is hand to mouth, hand to mouth. After paying all your bills and taking care of your responsibilities, if you can go out and have a bottle of wine or buy a 6-pack and have it at home, you're blessed, because the economy is in shambles, whether Absolutely. They want to agree or not.
Yes. Cost of living is on the rise, inflation is on the rise, and the things that are duty-free are some of the most expensive, milk and eggs and whatnot. So you make a very valid point. A very valid point indeed. But certainly, back on point, the governor's residence doesn't need to move. And to your also point, I think it's, they're part of the landscape, the fabric of that landscape, and they themselves become part of the tourism package because you can point to it. You can be a beach vendor and sit in front of that property and take pictures there and whatnot. So I think it's part of the tourism product, but I appreciate the point that you make that it is half the size of public beach, so it's not necessarily going to, fix the problem to any large extent. A lot of locals have also stated that we're losing our beaches, and I think we've lost our beaches largely to development. There aren't many choices for alternative locations that don't already exist because every square foot is developed along 7 Mile Beach. Is that accurate?
Well, not only that, but looking on the Caymanian perspective, the native, or whatever you want to call us, because I think we're like the green iguanas, endangered. But these developers pay the same taxes that the poor man or the middle class are paying, and I don't think that's fair. You have a lot of also civil servants that are not being treated properly, but they can't speak up because they're in the civil service. If you speak up, then you're gone. So I get a lot of information from people all the time. And it's sad what's happening here. And like I say, the real Caymanians, those that can look back 5, 6, 8, 10, 4 generations, are endangered just as the green iguana or
Yeah.
the turtles. You
Yeah.
know, so what are we going to do to protect ourselves? And are we going to start pulling each other down and build a wall and climb up and help each other over the barrier? Or what are we going to do? Everyone, like I said, continues saying dart, dart, dart. Yeah, dart, okay. But let's fix us.
Well, the wheels of government do move slowly, and certainly as you stated, there are other issues that the country faces, and if there is in fact legislation to be written, it must first be drafted by the legal drafting department and the legal affairs office, and then handed to legislators. But we haven't seen any major legislation proposed by the current administration. We don't know of any other legislation that is being amended. So certainly it seems that their dance card is free, and we certainly have not seen regular meetings of Parliament, which again, you can't pass new legislation if you have no meeting of Parliament. It just seems to me that they're just not as motivated to address the real challenging issues as they would otherwise say. But we are grateful to have you back in studios. It is certainly something that we will continue to keep our eye on and continue to stick with until we find that solution. But we want to thank you for coming in and giving us, again, a point of view of somebody who operates there. What has changed? And from what we're hearing, not much.
Not much has changed.
All right. Well, David, thank you so very much for being our guest. Any final and/or closing remarks you wish to leave with us and our viewers?
I'd just like to see the issue resolved, and I don't think that I should have fought in vain to make such changes and to go forward as a businessman in the island that's being an ambassador for this country, to just be set aside and said, well, you guys can't make a living. I have kids and family that depend on me. So if I'm not able to do this, then where do I go? What do I do?
Indeed, indeed. What do you do indeed? That is a question, the million-dollar question, which hopefully we will have the opportunity to have answered at some point. We just don't know when that will be. But David, again, thank you very much for being our guest. We certainly have enjoyed it, and we hope our listeners have also enjoyed our continued coverage of the issues facing legal, legitimate beach vendors on the Cayman Islands public beach. If you enjoyed this episode as much as we did, we hope you will like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Please tune in every Sunday at our new time at 2 p.m. for another episode of Let's Talk, exploring the issues affecting all of our lives. I'm your host, Austin Harris. Until next time.